laid-in marble floors, marble columns, unusually high ceilings and very wide hallways. And along one side of most of the hallways, from floor to ceiling, was a rose-colored plate glass window that opened onto a desert garden. All the rooms were private. All the rooms had access to a desert garden. And all of those gardens along the pathways led into a central huge garden with a fountain at each corner and a huge fountain in the middle with palm trees and other things. Little pathways that wound through it with benches. It was very nice. We had, or I had, and it was routine, they give you 3 days to settle in, to get used to the jet lag and to get acquainted with the hospital before you assume any duties. The one thing that I noticed right off was attendants wheeling carts down with what was clearly a human form body under a sheet. Now, most of you won't see this, but if you're around hospitals as much as I am, you know that the patient has died and they're being transported to a temporary morgue in the basement. But over there, modesty declares that if you transport a patient to the X-ray department, you cover them from head to toe in a sheet. So you see these people coming by all day long. Now, in the morning, the men go to X-ray and the women go in the afternoon. The next day, the women go in the morning and the men go in the afternoon, never together. It took me a few days to find my way around my office, my workspace, my laboratory, over the procedure room, and the conference rooms and the cafeteria and so forth and so on. And about the second or third day, I was eating lunch and I began to develop a very significant urinary urgency, prostate, you know. And I hurried out of the cafeteria, through the swinging doors, across the hallway, and into the John, right into 3 startled women. You know, you wonder, do they behead men for invading women's toilets? I don't know. But anyway, on about the third day, we had orientations as well. Orientations were given by the expatriate administrators, mostly Canadians, and also by Arabian administrators on do's and don'ts of practice and customs in Arabia. You also give up your passport at that moment, and they give you an Arabian passport, which is called an igama. And the igama is all in Arabic, and it tells anyone who needs to know who you are, why you're there, where you're stationed, and so forth, all the data that anyone would need to know about you. And you must carry that with you at all times. I must tell you that the hospital is comparable to the best of the hospitals in this country, in my opinion. The staff, mostly from Canada, a few from England, Denmark, and Sweden, all board certified in subspecialty, most of them telling me that they're in Arabia to escape the constraints of socialized medicine. We'll see. But the equipment was first rate. There wasn't any piece of equipment that was available that wasn't available over there. And I would say that the practice of medicine over there and the staff, the equipment, and the space were every bit as comparable to the best hospitals in this country. Now, hardly a day would go by, certainly a week would never go by, without something very unique in the practice of medicine would come up. Some of it was humorous, some of it was startling, always came as a surprise. When I was asked to, or decided to give a talk like this, I took the pad out, 5x8 pad or whatever it is, and I wrote down subjects that might be of interest to talk about. I had 5 pages. Then I found out that the talk would be a half hour, 20 minutes, a half hour, and I only used 1 page. So many things happened in a unique country, in a Muslim country like that catch you by surprise. It was just phenomenal. But I'll tell you a couple of my experiences. I got a call from a nurse in a short stay. Short stay is when a patient comes to the emergency room. The emergency room doctors are not convinced that they can send the patient home, but they don't find enough to admit them to the hospital. So they put them in a short stay for 24, 48 hours of further observation, and then a disposition can be made. The nurse called and said she had a patient in short stay. Would I come to see the patient? When I got there, she said, well, this is an Arab, a Bedouin tribesman, complaining of a headache because he's been run over by a camel. And I thought to myself, well, it's important in medicine. Your experience is medicine. I'm thinking to myself, how many patients have I seen that have been trampled by a camel? Well, I couldn't find anything of any real importance on this patient, and I told the nurse, give him a couple of Tylenol. I'll be back in the morning and check him one more time. Next morning, I got back there. The patient was gone. What happened? Well, we discharged him. Why did you discharge him? Well, after you saw the patient, the Bedouin family came in, and they have a little instrument that they can heat over a stove, and it's about the size of a nickel, and they sear the skin over the involved area of discomfort, and they branded him. And the next morning, his headache was gone. Mine would be gone too. They branded him. That's Bedouin medicine, and he wanted to go home, so they discharged him. Subsequently, I saw any number of patients with hyperpigmented branding scars over their chests, their abdomen, and their back from the Bedouin treatment. I admitted a patient one afternoon with chronic hepatitis B and cirrhosis, and he had an abdomen filled with fluid. We call that ascites, and that's very common with cirrhosis. And I made arrangements to do a paracentesis on him the next morning. I would stick a needle in, draw out a little fluid, and they would send it to the laboratory to make sure there wasn't any hidden infection or tumor in there, and it was just due to the cirrhosis. Well, the next morning I came into the room, and the bed was totally undisturbed. The patient was lying on the floor with a few blankets and a pillow, and the nurse said he just absolutely refused to lie in that bed. He said there's just no way that he was going to do that. The nurses could help quite a bit. They'd been there quite a while, and they spoke enough Arabic, and they explained that I wanted to do a tap on his abdomen, and he understood that, but he kept looking at the bed, smiling. He spoke no English, just a Bedouin tribesman, and he looked at it, and he kept shaking his head, la, 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 mafi, mafi. He didn't want anything to do with that bed. It's the first and only time I've done a paracentesis on my hands and knees.